There was another piece in the Post by Jennifer Rubin, one of my all-time favorite writers, opinion writers, who pointed out something we've been talking about, how Republicans, and I just wish these well-placed and well-read and important writers like Greg Sargent or Jennifer Rubin, I wish they would drop the word Republican. I really do. Folks, they don't exist anymore. They really don't. And replace it with what these people are, Christian fascists. But anyway, she feels that once upon a time, Republicans fancied themselves, remember this, as defenders of law and order. Now, obviously, that was a dog whistle term. Law and order meant nothing but deny the colored folk of equal access to justice. Put the son of a bitches down. Lock them up. Have two sets of laws, for example, where it concerns cocaine. White people get a fine. Black people go to prison. Same drug. Different composition of how the drug is. Is it snorted or is it smoked? If it's smoked, prison. If it's snorted, a fine. Jesus. So the essence of that bullshit phrase, law and order, was that the law should be dependable, applied equitably and impartially, and act as a restraint on people in power, like Republican office holders at the time that that phrase was being used. And as Rubin points out, law and order meant that courts were to respect precedent so that individuals in civil society could rely on predictable laws. Now, the comparison would be under dictatorships, the word law is a bullshit term that the dictators use to further their interests and to intimidate and confuse their opponents. But Western democracies, this is what conservatives used to boast about, Western democracies delinked the power of the ruler from the operation of the law, making the law supreme, not the ruler. Oh my God. That was the idea in democracy, in an independent judiciary. That was the hope. That was the plan, the design. As Rubin points out, that's gone. That's gone. Since the Orange Vomit took office, these Christian fascists have adopted a different notion of the law, a different interpretation of what the law is supposed to mean. These Christian fascists want to make the law unpredictable. They want to increase the ability of the state, when their side is in control, to interpret the law any way they want. And they want to attempt to accomplish what would otherwise be politically impossible through misdirection and lies and harassment, i.e., what happened on January 6th. This is what the Christian fascist game plan is. Rubin cites the latest attempt to undermine a woman's autonomy. This is how the New York Times reported on that Texas law banning abortions after 6 weeks, when so many women don't even know they're pregnant. This is how this is what the New York Times said in an editorial by the editorial board about that law in Texas. Quote, ordinarily, enforcement would be up to government officials. And if clinics wanted to challenge the law's constitutionality, they would sue those officials in making their case. But the law in Texas prohibits officials from enforcing it. That's right. That's what it says. Instead, it takes the opposite approach, effectively deputizing ordinary citizens, including people from outside Texas, to sue clinics and others who violate the law. And it awards those people at least $10,000 per illegal abortion if they are successful. The result of that law is that it is extremely difficult to challenge before it takes effect on September 1st because it's hard to know whom to sue to block it. And lawyers for clinics are now wrestling with what to do about this. 6-week bans in other states have all been blocked as they make their way through the court system. End quote, the New York Times. So you see what the Christian fascist demons have done by giving the power, so to speak, to anyone who wants to file a lawsuit. They have made everyone potential defendants for the clinics that are legally allowed to perform abortions. And if everyone becomes a possible target, then no one is. This is some horrible shit, but this is what Texas has done. So, building on that law, consider the potential for harassment and spying and extortion and other Christian fascist behavior directed toward women. Rubin writes, the law depends on what a woman's neighbors, associates, and friends know about her reproductive health and are willing to tell the authorities to grab a $10,000 bounty. So the possibility of frivolous litigation is hard to quantify. Can you imagine? This law is supposed to go into effect September 1st, folks. I mean, this is crazy. This is beyond crazy. What did I say at the beginning of this podcast? What are these next levels up or down, depending on which direction you want to point this bullshit? But from being irritating to this crazy bipolar shit, to schizophrenia, to paranoid schizophrenia, to mad, insane, murderous psychopathology. Oh my God. Well, so the truth is, these Texas Christian fascists who wrote the law, they lack the nerve to try to uniformly enforce the law or to defend its constitutionality. And a professor at the University of Texas told Jennifer Rubin this, quote, it's a deeply cynical effort to both, one, chill conduct that ought to be constitutionally protected, that is, obtaining an abortion, and two, provide cover for judges to find creative ways to dodge the merits of the constitutional challenge, end quote. In other words, this is a law designed not to this farcical bullshit of protect a life, but rather to create fear and uncertainty for women and healthcare providers. This has never been about protecting a life. All this bullshit about the unborn child and 80 trillion, billion, quadrillion babies have been murdered since Roe v. Wade is nonsensical bullshit. But why do so many Americans buy into it? So, Ruben has a question. Will miscarriages lead to a lawsuit from, say, a nosy office worker trying to cash in on the reward? A woman is pregnant. She tells her friends in the office, I'm pregnant. She comes back later and says, I miscarried. Oh, yeah? Miscarried, huh? Sure you didn't have an abortion, sweetie? $10,000 is hanging in the balance for me. I think I'll turn you in. Do you see what's happening? So, will abortion bounties become a weapon in divorce custody cases? Well, as Ruben points out, nobody knows, but that's the point. The law doesn't seek to protect the fetus in any systematic way, but rather to intimidate women, turning women into teller machines, cash cows for spiteful anti-choice busybodies or anti-women's women's privacy busybodies. I said anti-choice, didn't I? My bad. Now, moving from that to the Christian fascist so-called election law bullshit is more the same. These laws are designed to torment, to annoy, to harass voters, especially the poor and hourly workers and the elderly and voters with disabilities, all of those, by taking away conveniences like drop boxes or forcing voters to stand in long lines and imposing needless burdens on voting by mail. Oh, and let us not forget, providing people standing in long lines for hours a bottle of water, a piece of bread, maybe a folding chair to sit on. Don't do that shit in the states like Georgia that have passed these laws, or you'll go to jail. And these rotten Christian fascists are just pissing on the directives from their own so-called Messiah, who told them, don't do that. Don't do things like that. Take care of those people who need help. And this is why they are so dangerous. They are using the shield of Christianity to operate like freed demons, which is exactly, in my opinion, what they are. Now, the New York Times also reports that the voting restrictions proposed by the Texas Christian fascists would, quote, ban 24-hour voting, ban drive-through voting, add new voter identification requirements for voting by mail, limit third-party ballot collection, increase the criminal penalties for election workers who run innocently afoul of some bullshit regulation, and greatly expand the authority and autonomy of partisan poll watchers. Now, I mentioned this the other day. These are the teeny weenies, the bully boys, the son of a bitches who, if one ever approaches me and asks me a question, of course, I'm white and I'm male, so they probably won't. But if one of these so-called right-wing poll watchers ever came up to me and started to question my right to vote, I realize I'd probably go to jail, but I will smack that son of a bitch right in his face with as much force as I can put behind a balled-up fist. I swear to you on this podcast that that's what would happen. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.